Hello guys, this is your friend Multiverse Shinobi 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Became Emperor of the West and Build Own Empire Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. 2 long years had passed since the end of the Unification Wars. 2 years since the lands of the Western continent were united under a single ruler since the time of the Six Paths Sage, thus leading the people into an era of prosperity and peace. The city of Kimin, also known as the imperial capital, located 20 miles inland from the Western Sea, and accessible from the Kimin River, which its way halfway through the northern continent, ending at its namesake. The imperial capital also served as a hub for trade, as did South Ichiyama in the southern region. The nerve center of the unified West was the imperial complex. Think the imperial palace in Japan. Located at the heart of Kumon City, which served as the imperial capital, the 2-mile complex sat on top of a small hill and was heavily fortified, as it once belonged to the late Kimin warlord Rokenbungi Oda. Now, it served as the center of the unified West. Spanning 2 miles, the 4-story imperial palace, which served as the residence of the emperor. The top 2 floors were reserved for the emperor, while the bottom 2 floors were for their guests. Aside from the imperial palace was the Hall of Sovereigns, of which the emperor, the empress and their 16-member imperial council, 8 from the empire's high-ranking samurai and shinobi clans and 8 civilians and nobility who were the elected representatives of the people, met 3 times a week to conduct and manage the government. The House of Sovereigns also contained his throne room, where the royal couple would usually receive their guests, seated on their thrones, as well as their joint office. Speaking of the emperor, he was inside his office, taking on his greatest foe yet. A foe so devious, so cunning, that it almost made him wish that he was fighting his former self, the Akatsuki, the legendary Sannin and Hiruzen Sarutobi at once. A foe so cold and ruthless, that even Orochimaru would be sent screaming in terror from its presence. That foe was paperwork. House of Sovereigns, Office of the Emperor and Empress Consort. Og, I should have known this job had a catch to it. Honestly, I don't see how my old man could have done this. Leading an army into battle was much easier. The Emperor of the Unified West sat behind his desk, going through the mountain of paperwork, grumbling under his breath about how his wife was able to escape from the abomination of paperwork while he was stuck with it, and of the unfairness of it all. 18 years old, he had came a long way since his days as a Konohagakure genin. He was no longer the loudmouthed, orange-loving, ramen-consuming knucklehead who screamed that he would be Hokage one day. The years he had spent in the West had changed him. Forged in the fires of war, trained in the ways of the shinobi and the samurai. Standing at 6 feet tall, with a wiry, muscular frame, the face a spitting image of his father. The whisker-like marks on his face, a sign of him being a Jinchuriki, were gone. His blonde hair had taken on a reddish hue, a sign that he was of Uzumaki blood, the facial stubble on his face also the same color. Blue eyes showed intelligence combined with ruthlessness when needed be. His style of clothing also changed as well. No more did he wore orange, which screamed, "Kill me." Instead, he took to wearing mostly black, since it can go with anything. The emperor dressed simply, as it had reflected on his childhood, a white shirt with a tight collar and the sleeves rolled to his elbows, black vest, pants and boots. His longcoat remained on the hanger, while his black cage-style hat hanged alongside the longcoat. The hat was mostly used to conceal his identity, mostly when he traveled abroad, which was often. The emperor of the unified Western Empire, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, sighed. "Screw this," he muttered. Making a cross with his hands, he channeled his chakra and uttered the words, "Kage Bushin." In a poof of smoke, 5 shadow clones appeared. Naruto rose from his seat and retrieved his longcoat. "Finish up the paperwork. I'm going for a walk." "Yes, boss," the clones acknowledged as they got to work. longcoat fluttering in the breeze, Naruto walked down the halls of the House of Sovereigns. Servants bowed to him as he passed, to which Naruto responded with a nod of the head. As it was past noon, there was one place where his wife could be, the palace gardens. Rounding the corner, he ran into his senior advisor. A tall, walking mountain of muscle, tanned, with bleach blonde hair and the mustache to match. His Hittite with the imperial insignia, the four symbols seal, was wrapped around one massive bicep. Naruto greeted the older man. Afternoon, A. The former Raikage of Kumo turned advisor grunted. Chief. How did the Raikage of Kumo ended up in the West, and as Naruto's senior advisor? 1 year earlier, A was overthrown by Orochimaru, who had placed a puppet ruler in his place. The first order of the new Raikage: eliminate his predecessor and his brother, Killer B. However, as Emperor of the West, Naruto had a robust spy network in the East, and it was through them that Naruto was notified of the coup while visiting Gaara in Suna. With Hinata at his side and the aid of his elite guard, his personal bodyguards and the use of the demons, Gate Jutsu, Naruto arrived at the nick of time and slaughtered the Kumo Anbu, thus saving A and B's lives, and those of A's loyal supporters. Imagine their shock upon returning to Suna that the Emperor was the former Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Even A and B had heard about the exploits about the one who unified the lands under a single banner. It was then that Naruto offered A and B political asylum within the empire. A and B accepted Naruto's offer, with A serving as senior advisor to the young emperor, while B hung around the trading post of Rara, located 30 miles from Kumon. Dodging your duties once again, Chief? A asked dryly. Duties? Have you seen the mountain of paperwork on my desk? Naruto shot back. A shuddered. Don't remind me. I've had my share of doing paperwork when I was the Raikage. Whoever came up with paperwork needs to be strung up. Naruto chuckled. On that, I agree. I left a couple of shadow clones to finish up. I received word from Fu that several clans from Konohagakure have defected from the village. Is that true? Naruto nodded. Fu, the Jinchuriki for Chome, the seven-tailed beetle, was part of the United West's information network. Anything Konoha-related was sent her way, and in turn, was delivered to either Naruto, his wife, or the Nine Tails herself. 4 clans, plus 90 Junin-level shinobi. They should be arriving within the week. Can you trust the Hyuga and the Ino Shikacho? I can see you have your concerns, Naruto replied. The Ino Shikacho first generation were childhood friends with my father, and unlike my former teammates, their children never saw me as the fox. As for the Hyuga, aside the fact that they hate the Uchiha with a passion, Hinata's mother was close friends with my own mother, and Hiashi saw her as an equal. Despite Sarutobi's efforts in stunting my growth in order to turn me into a weapon, those 4 men looked out for me in their own way, honoring a promise made to them by my parents. I nodded, knowing of Naruto's treatment as the village pariah solely because he held the most powerful of the tailed beasts. Not even B and Yugito were treated as harshly. In his mind, the people of Konoha were total idiots, favoring a traitor over a hero. In the aftermath of the Uchiha retrieval mission, once it became known as to what had happened through Gaara and Suna, public opinion regarding Konoha had plummeted. In the end, despite all of its posturing and its supposed will of fire, Konohagakure no Sato was known as the village who rewards traitors for the fire daimyo, Tsunade and Jiraiya. Their name was synonymous with the words hypocrite and backstabber. And for Sasuke Uchiha, his name was synonymous with traitor. It was through his intelligence network, posing as merchants from the Pakara merchant house, that Naruto had found out that the Konohagakure High Council not only promoted Sasuke to Junin, which he did not deserve, but also activated the CRA. Hiashi Hyuga and Inoichi Yamanaka objected to having their daughters marry the Uchiha. When Tsunade threatened to strip them of clan status and revoke their shinobi registrations, Hiashi and Inoichi retaliated by turning in their Hitai Atesh and storming out of the council chambers. Shikaku and Shuza soon followed, turning in their Hitai Atesh as well, throwing in their lot with the Hyuga and their longtime friend. Unknown to Tsunade and the other pro-Uchiha members of the council, Hiyashi had been in contact with the Imperial spies and had gotten word to Hinata. After talking it over with Naruto, he had agreed to allow the Hyuga and anyone defecting from Konoha political asylum. Those four and their families looked out for me back in Konoha, Naruto continued. Their children did not see me as a demon growing up. And Lord Namikaze always pays back his debts, I concluded. The young emperor nodded. Plus, Konoha's reputation had already taken a serious hit when they banished me and favored the Uchiha. With the loss of 4 major clans, the village will be crippled even further. You know Konoha won't take this lying down, said. They already did, Naruto replied. As you probably know, the unified West and yours truly are quite the hot topic in the East. They know of my exploits and of my strength, which is even greater than the legendary Sannin combined. If Konoha attacked the defecting clans who were traveling with the Pakara merchants on the way to the coast, I nodded in understanding. It would set off an international incident, and would make Konoha lose face, attacking an unarmed convoy. Impressive, Chief. Naruto grinned. Thank you. If you need me, I will be at the gardens. I smirked as he nodded knowingly before walking off in the opposite direction. Imperial Complex. Palace Gardens. The Palace Gardens, think Shang Tsung's Palace Gardens without the Outworld-related stuff, was the favorite spot of the Empress Consort of the United West. Her husband had built it for her, obtaining various rare flowers from east and west. Located at the back of the complex, Naruto had it done for Hinata as a wedding gift, seeing as how his wife loved flowers. Kimin had several gardens and parks, as well as training grounds for its shinobi and samurai, but this was for the emperor's personal use. Seated under one of the trees, was the Empress Consort of the West. She was reading a romance novel under the shade of the trees, enjoying the spring day. She was the same age as her husband. Her hair, once long during the Unification Wars, was now cut short again, think Samantha Burns' hairstyle from Gears of War 3. She was taller than she was back when they were both Konoha genin, standing at 5 feet 7, several months younger than he was, her pupil-less lavender eyes identifying her as one of the Hyuga. She was dressed in her standard medic nin uniform, which was a black shinobi shozoku, a type of dark-colored training doji for shinobi, with a crimson lotus decal on the L. Underneath the shozoku was a fishnet shirt. A black junin flak vest completed the outfit. Like her husband, Hinata Hyuga, now Hinata Namikaze had came a long way since Konoha. When the Uchiha was pardoned and Naruto was banished, Hinata was sent along with him by her father in order to keep the Hyuga Council from branding her with the caged bird seal. In the years following her exile, she too had been forged in the fires of war, having become Naruto's second in command. She was also the founder of the Medic Ninja program used during the war, which was one of the major factors in Naruto winning the Unification Wars. While she ran the program, her second in command was a clansman from Naruto's clan, Karen Uzumaki. The Medic Ninja program produced top-notch medic ninjas, who were later assigned to various parts of the empire. Karen was also a former Otogakur kunoichi who had defected from Orochimaru because of his inhumane experiments on the sick in his quest for immortality. Aside from being a highly skilled medic, Hinata was also trained in the assassination arts by Yugito Ni, as well as political intrigue by the elderly Sanshi. She was known to the soldiers and to the people as the Lady, and Princess of Foxes, given as she was the third Kitsune Sannin. She continued to read her novel as she felt her husband's presence behind her. She had gotten better at detecting his chakra signature. How is it that you can sneak away from your duties at the hospital, while I have to use shadow clones to get away from the mountain of paperwork left on my desk? Hinata closed her book and looked up at her husband, who was leaning up against a nearby tree. Karen took over for me at the hospital, Hinata replied, rising to her feet. Unlike the wives of the daimyos in the East, Koyuki Kazuhana being the exception. Hinata had an active role as the Empress of the Imperial Nation as head of the Imperial Medic Corps, which was one of the major reasons she was respected by the shinobi and samurai. Of course, she was not exempt from the horror that was paperwork. Naruto walked over to her. Really? He asked, slipping his arms around his wife's waist, smiling broadly. Really? Hinata replied, returning the smile. I missed you, she added, wrapping her arms around his waist. She had to go to the hospital early for a meeting with Karen and Kokura Yamada, leaving Naruto in bed alone. The moment, however, was ruined with the arrival of one of the kunoichi who was part of the Hellcats. Commanded by former Kumo kunoichi and Jinchuriki Yugito-ni, the Hellcats was one of several elite special forces units under Naruto and Hinata's command. The Hellcats were all female, consisting of both kunoichi and Onna Bugaisha, female samurai, and identified by their khaki flak vests. Both Naruto and Hinata were former understudies of Yugito, as she had taught the both of them assassination techniques, which came in handy during the Unification Wars. Chief Lady Hinata. Naruto frowned, while Hinata giggled. Releasing Hinata, he turned to face the kneeling Hellcat, who had arrived via Shunshin. He recognized her as Yugito's second-in-command. Yes, Kumi, what is it? He asked, annoyed that his Hinata time was interrupted. Forgive me for interrupting, but I bring word from General Ni herself, the Hellcat replied. There is an 5-man envoy from the east en route to the complex. General Ni has identified them as shinobi from Otogakure no Sato. Naruto's frown deepened. Who is leading them? Hinata asked. General Ni has identified them as the Sound Four and the leader of the envoy is Kabuto Yakushi. They should be arriving within 5 minutes. Naruto nodded. Give my thanks to Yugito. Make sure they are discreetly tailed to the complex. Sir. With that, the Hellcat vanished. Naruto sighed. Guess I'll have to take a rain check for this, he said. No rest for the wicked, I'm afraid. Remain here, since your eyes are a dead giveaway, okay. Okay. House of Sovereigns, Throne Room. Seated on his throne, Rinnegan activated. Naruto eyed the white-haired man with a combination of disdain and suspicion. Kurama was not there, as he did not want her to give away any suspicion as to her true identity. The cage-style hat was on his head, effectively hiding his face. Not to take any chances, his face was concealed by his mask. Unlike the cage hats of the East, the imperial version was solid black, the cloth still white. Unknown to Kabuto Yakushi, this had not been the first time that Naruto and Hinata had a run-in with the cunning shinobi. 6 months earlier, while inspecting the Pakara merchant house's wind outpost near the Wind-Fire border, Kabuto had been ordered by Orochimaru to check the place out, having heard about the rise of the Western Empire and its leaders. What Kabuto found was the commander of Naruto's elite guards, Major Benesato Mochizuki. Known as the Snake Queen of Kimen, Kabuto had been soundly defeated by the older woman. Then Orochimaru had appeared. The Snake Queen fought the Snake Sannin while Naruto and Hinata watched from the sidelines, Benesato having been warned in advance of Orochimaru's methods. But it wasn't necessary, as Benesato had been more skilled than Orochimaru. The Snake Sannin had been forced to retreat. The white-haired, bespectacled Odo shinobi took a knee, head bowed. Your Imperial Majesty, he began, may your reign be a long and prosperous one. My name is Kabuto Yakushi. I represent Otogakure, the village hidden in the Sound. I bring greetings from my master, Lord Orochimaru. Using his chakra to disguise his voice, think Naruto speaking in Shredder's voice from the first movie. Naruto responded. So what business does your master want with me? Lord Orochimaru has been monitoring the events that have transpired here in the West with great interest, Kabuto said. He is especially impressed that you have united the lands in so little time. He has sent me here to discuss terms of an alliance between your empire and the Sound. Naruto leaned back on his throne. Tell me, Yakushi, what would I gain should I ally myself to the Sound? You would have the backing of one of the most powerful ninja in the East, Kabuto said. Despite our small numbers, you would mostly benefit from Lord Orochimaru's guidance. In other words, take over my body since Sasuke is off limits, and use my army to invade Konoha, Naruto thought darkly. The young emperor made it look like he was in deep thought. I am sorry, but a military alliance is not in the Empire's best interest. You misunderstood me, Your Majesty. Kabuto began, but was cut off. Oh, don't be coy, Yakushi, Naruto replied. Do you really think that you are the first from the east to ask for an alliance? First it was the rock, then it was the cloud, you make number 3. The people has seen war since the era of my great ancestor, the Six Paths Sage. Kabuto's eyes went wide. You're a descendant of the Six Paths himself. I thought only the Senju and the Uchiha were his only descendants. Naruto chuckled dryly. No, the Six Paths had only one child, a daughter, who is the founder of my clan. The 2 brothers who would later found the Uchiha and Senju lines trained under him, nothing more. When the Six Paths died, they changed their lineage to make it so that they were his progeny, and tried to murder his daughter. Despite the Senju founder wielding the Mokoden and the Uchiha wielding the Sharingan, they were no match for the Rinnegan's power, and were beaten. After that incident, she fled here. It was a half-truth, actually. The Uzumaki clan ancestor did not flee to the west, but instead settled in what was to be known as Whirlpool Country. But we are getting off subject, Naruto continued. The people has seen war since the era of the Six Paths. Unlike the people of the East, they have not known a lasting peace. I saw the lawlessness of the lands and I gave them the peace they desired. I am merely a servant of the people and even an emperor must listen to the will of the people. I am truly sorry that you have come this far, but tell your Lord Orochimaru that my answer is no. Kabuto slowly nodded. I see. In any case, Lord Orochimaru will be disappointed that you will not agree to the alliance. I thank you for your time, Your Majesty. With a wave of his hand, Naruto excused Kabuto. As soon as the sound envoy left the room, Naruto summoned the commander of Shadow Company. Kazuma. Emerging from the shadows as if it was water, was the head of the Kazuma clan, and commander of the appropriately named Shadow Company. A bald, wiry man in his early 50s, Hideo Kazuma was the first to swear loyalty when Naruto had killed Rokubungi Oda. The Kazuma clan were masters of a rare bloodline called Shadow Release, which allowed them to cover major distances by using the shadows of various objects. You called, Chief? Kazuma asked. Have your men tail Yakushi and the Oto envoy, Naruto ordered, removing his mask and returning to his normal voice. Make sure that they are on the first boat out of Kimen. I don't trust him, or the snake. Between the snake and Konoha, I hate Orochimaru more. See to your orders, Kazuma. Kazuma bowed. Right away, my lord. As Kazuma sank back into the shadows, Naruto frowned. Orochimaru was taking an interest in the Empire, and even though the snake-loving pedophile was on the back burner, he was a legitimate threat. No way am I letting the snake destroy Konoha, Naruto thought as he deactivated his Rinnegan and removed the hat and mask. That responsibility falls onto me. Looking at his watch he mentally cursed to himself. Damn. Thought I had more time before the meeting with the council. Oh well. Imperial Council Chambers, minutes later. The council hall inside the Hall of Sovereigns was as big as the council chambers back inside Konoha. The council chambers consisted of 3 long tables, the first containing the seats of the emperor, the empress consort, and their advisors. 2 tables located on either side of the emperor's table faced each other, each containing 6 seats for either side. The council was chosen by Naruto and Hinata personally to serve as ministers of their respective fields. The meeting was straightforward. Aside from an uprising of malcontents loyal to Oda which was quickly crushed before it could gain steam, and the financial situation concerning the southern Badlands, there was nothing worthy to report. Good thing that they only met 3 times a month. At the lead table, Naruto and Hinata sat side by side. Next to Hinata was Aon Kurama, in her human form. Next to Naruto was the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan, Takuma Uzumaki. As the Uzumaki clan was famous for their fuinjutsu, Takuma was his uncle, as Kushina was his older sister. Unlike Kushina and her son, who both wielded the Rinnegan, Takuma was a fuinjutsu master. He was also known as the Maelstrom of Whirlpool, given both his natural fighting abilities, as well as his short temper. When Whirlpool had fallen in the last Shinobi War, Kushina, despite being Minato's wife, did not fully trust Konohagakure, and had ordered her brother to flee elsewhere. Taking 500 Uzushiogakure shinobi with him, half of them being Uzumaki clansmen, Takuma fled to the west, and had set up shop in the northern continent. Upon hearing of a rising warlord with the same surname as his own, Takuma sought him out, and found out that the warlord in question was his own nephew. After hearing Naruto and Hinata's story, from his time in Konoha up to being the scapegoat for the Uchiha's attempted defection, which led to his defection, Takuma was furious. But in the end, Naruto had gained family, and more importantly, allies to his cause. When the West was united under Naruto's rule, he had been the first to accept a position of senior advisor to the Emperor and Empress consort alongside Kurama. Like the shinobi in both the East and West, the samurai also had their own ranking system. An apprentice samurai was the same as a shinobi in training, and received instruction from the academy, the imperial schools where up-and-coming shinobi and samurai learned how to fight. The largest of the schools were in the imperial capital, Kurata Port, South Ichiyama, and Tears Point. Once the amateur samurai passed a series of physical and mental exams, they became Aonisebushi, amateur samurai. It was the shinobi equivalent of genin. Unlike the shinobi system, the Aonisebushi would be assigned to either a three-man cell or apprenticed to an elder samurai. After 2 years, the Aonisebushi were eligible to be promoted to Chukanbushi, middle samurai. The Chukanbushi is the most common rank of samurai, and was the shinobi equivalent of chunin. They were the foot soldiers and archers, the main bulk of the samurai forces under Naruto's command. It is there that the Chukanbushi had to prove their worth. Last, was the Saebushi, elite samurai. The samurai equivalent of junin. They are the highly skilled samurai, a position that would take most of their lives to obtain. The Saebushi were mainly the officers of the imperial military, people who both the samurai and Naruto had fought alongside with and trusted with their lives. Some of the Saebushi were clan heads, others were not. The Saebushi were the ones who took on a single apprentice or a cell of their choosing. They were highly respected by both shinobi and samurai. Naruto himself was of this rank. On Naruto's left, Sanshi, the elder samurai warrior and philosopher who had taught Naruto the ways of the samurai. In most cases, he was a lot like Danzo Shimura, a warhawk. Only difference was that he fought wars to defend his homeland, not to expand his influence. He was also the Minister of Defense. A powerful samurai even to this very day, he held the rank of Kodenbushi, the legendary samurai. In his younger days, as Naruto and Hinata had later found out, he had traveled in the east, defeating Hiruzen Sarutobi, Hanzo the Salamander and even the Sannin. During the Unification War, he had invited Naruto to his village and Naruto became so impressed with the old man, that he asked to be trained in the ways of the samurai. When the empire was created, he was the first that Naruto had invited to be on the council. Despite his old age, Sanshi was well respected by samurai and ninja alike. His granddaughter, Sana Sanshi, who was a member of Yugito's Hellcats, served as part of Naruto's elite guards. He was also the only person who could still kick Naruto's 6 falls out of 10. Next was Eiji Kibagami, also from a respected samurai clan with connections in Iron Country, as he had family there, which was helpful when Naruto negotiated a trade agreement between the Empire and Iron. A hard-punching, hard-drinking samurai with a mouth that would make Tayuya blush and Hidan green with envy, he was the first to join up with Naruto in his ambition. He was a Saisebushi-level shinobi who served as the Minister of Samurai Affairs. Despite being a foul-mouthed samurai, he was fiercely loyal to the young emperor, honorable and carried himself as a true samurai. It was also a known fact that he and Kasumi Ehara were romantically involved. His pet wolf, Bijumaru, was at his side. Like Sanshi, Eiji had a member of his family as part of the elite guard. His nephew Hideo Kibagami served proudly. Next to Kibagami was the head of the Chiba clan, Kota Chiba, a Junin who served as Minister of Shinobi Affairs. The Chiba clan was a line of ninja who practiced a deadlier style of taijutsu that would put even Rock Lee and Maida Guy to shame, the taijutsu used originally as an assassination technique. Like Sanshi's granddaughter and Eiji's son, her eldest son, Takashi, served as one of Naruto's elite guards, a high honor for the Chiba clan. In most ways, the Chiba clan reminded Naruto of the Inuzuka, fiercely loyal to the pack. Sitting next to Kota was her childhood friend and fellow ninja, Kokura Yamada. The eldest daughter of a former nobleman and a mist refugee, she was the diametric opposite of Zabuza's partner Haku, as her attacks were fire-release attacks. A Tokubetsu Junin shinobi, she was the Minister of Health, having been picked for the decision by Hinata herself. In an interesting side note, her bloodline allows her to endure an opponent's fire attacks unscathed. The Yamada clan also had a reputation for being top-notch healers whose skill rivaled that of Tsunade in her prime. Next to the fire-wielding mistress was the regal Kasumi Ehara. She was a Saisebushi-level samurai who served as Minister of the Interior. The Ehara was the most powerful samurai clan in the southern region, in both influence and skill, and aside from the elderly Sanshi who resided on the northern continent, was one of Naruto's major supporters. Kasumi herself was a legendary warrior in her own right, having led troops into battle. Despite being in her 40s, she looked younger. When her husband was killed by Oda's hand, he was about to claim Ehara for his own. Thankfully, Naruto's arrival put a stop to those plans. Her best friend, Murasaki Shibiku, was a popular author of romance novels and poetry, Hinata being her biggest fan. It was also gaining prominence over Jiraiya's Ika Ika series in the East. Seated next to Ehara was the head of the Okajima ninja clan, Hayate Okajima. Nicknamed the Tengu, because of his habit of wearing a Tengu mask to battle, the Okajima clan were skilled in ninjutsu, assassination techniques and rakan. They were the natural rivals of the Shinto clan, who favored open combat over covert assassinations. Naruto had approached the Okajima clan head for an alliance. Hayate was impressed by the boy's bravado and tenacity that he signed on to Naruto's side. Once the war was over, Naruto had returned to the Okajima clan their lands which were taken from them by one of the more corrupt daimyos. In return, the entire Okajima clan swore their eternal loyalty to their new emperor. On Hinata's right, Ryuji Shinzen and his wife Haruka Shinzen, the heads of the Western Empire's premier mercantile guild, Pakara Merchant House, and co-ministers of finance. Ryuji was originally a mercenary ninja, while Haruka had a gift for business and management. They were the first to back Naruto in his ambition financially following the death of Rokubungi Oda. When the Unification Wars had reached its conclusion, they created the merchant houses which had two purposes, providing imported and exported items across the empire and in the east, while at the same time, keeping a close eye on the more unruly villages in the east. Thanks to Naruto, they now had branches all over the country, as well as several locations in the east, some of which served for gathering intel, as in Iwa, Fire Country and Kumo. Next was Shinoda Wakaba, former pirate captain, now a close business partner and longtime friend with the Shinzens, since his 10-boat fleet was originally used to harass and plunder both Oda's and his allies' supplies. It was Haruka who had pointed out the perks in having a fleet of ships backing up his ambition to Naruto. Now, with the war over, the fleet was now used to transport goods all over the continent, as well as in the elemental countries. In an interesting side note, the Shinzens and Wakaba were both in-laws, since the Shinzan's son had married Wakaba's daughter, which had brought their families into a close alliance. Seated next to Wakaba was Katsumoto Kitahara, a daimyo from the southern region who supported the people and working class. He was overthrown by a power-mad warlord and condemned to wander the lands, until Naruto found him. He was one of the key members in the civilian council, in which, thanks to Katsumoto, that his major support base was the civilians themselves. Katsumoto's lands were restored unto him, as well as his title as a reward for his service and loyalty. Given his passion for justice, it was fitting that he served as minster of that post. Next to Wakaba was Shin Akazuki. His home was the southern part of the continent. Shin was the youngest of the council at age 23, and trained as a samurai, having been recently promoted to Saisebushi. The son of Shinji Akazuki, a retired warlord who had fought with Naruto, Shin had made a name for himself during the Unification Wars as a formidable swordsman, and can hold his own against Naruto in their occasional spars. In some cases, he reminded Naruto of Shikamaru at times, brilliant, but lazy. Last, was Rumika Todo. Like Katsumoto, she was a daimyo, but hailed from the north's mountainous Lajja region. Todo was one of the daimyos whose land the late Rokenbungi Oda had an eye for, since her lands contained iron mines deep within the mountains, but once Naruto had eliminated him, she saw the wise decision in backing him in his war of conquest. Her husband was the original daimyo, until his death during a raiding party from Oda's men, forcing her to assume the role. But despite this, she was fiercely loyal to both her people and to the emperor. Zabuza Mamachi and Haku were also sitting in at the emperor's request. Thought to have died in Wave Country in Naruto's first mission, the former mist swordsman and his partner had instead fled the country as mist hunter ninjas had arrived, forcing the pair to leave high-powered blood clones in their places. Zabuza and Haku had fled to the west, where they had hooked up with bloodline refugees who had fled the purges under Yagura and the Mist Daimyo. When Naruto had arrived on the southern continent with his forces 2 years earlier, Zabuza had already made a name for himself as a powerful warlord, with Haku as his second in command. It was Haku who had discovered that Naruto was the warlord who had united the northern continent under his rule. Zabuza was surprised, to say the least. The little blonde runt who had faced him down on Tezuna's bridge all those years ago had unified the northern continent. What surprised him even more was that Konoha had betrayed him in favor of his traitorous teammate. Despite the fact that he was mostly a bloodthirsty sadist, Zabuza had a set of morals. He decided to join Naruto under one condition, that he would be the one to kill Kakashi Hatake. Naruto agreed, on the condition that he alone would beat the holy hell out of him first before Zabuza killed him. That, Zabuza agreed to. Zabuza was not only in command of his own unit, known as the Demon Brigade, but he also served as the chief interrogator in the Empire's interrogation division. He also taught Naruto mist-style swordsmanship, which came in handy in his war of conquest. Sanshi cleared his throat. Before we adjourn this meeting, Chief, is there anything else you would like to add? Yes, Naruto replied. As you might or might now know, my wife and I have been in contact with the 4 clans who have defected from Konohagakure no Sato, the Hyuga, the Yamanaka, the Akamaiki and the Nara. Aside from the 4 clans and their heirs, accompanying them are 200 Junin, one of which you might be interested in, Zabuza. His name is Ibiki Morino. Zabuza recognized the name. Ibiki, yes, I know of his reputation. Said to be the best in interrogation and torture. Who is he? Eiji Kibagami asked. He is a Tokubetsu Junin, Hinata explained. Some would describe him as a sadist. Oh, sounds like someone you would like, Mamachi, Eiji snorted, ignoring the sour look Zabuza had given him. Please continue, Lady Hinata. His interrogation techniques are stuff of legend, Hinata continued. Even when Naruto and I were coming up in the Shinobi Academy, Ibiki was someone to be feared. He has the unique ability to cause great pain and suffering without resorting to physical torture. His interrogation skills rely mostly on the ability to torture the mind. His knowledge on human psychology is top-notch. Ibiki is a firm believer of gaining control over a person's spirit by attacking the mind. That much is true, Zabuza said. You can say that I am an admirer of his work. Back in my Seven Swordsman days, Kisame had chosen to kill off the shinobi belonging to Mist's Cipher Division rather than allow them to fall into his hands. Charming fellow, Kasumi Ahara dryly noted. Ibiki works with Anko Mitarashi, Hinata continued. She is a Tokubetsu Junin, like Ibiki. A former student of Orochimaru. She is a master of interrogation who uses snakes just like her former master. She also loves dango, and is a total sadist. What about the clan heads? Eiji asked. The 4 clan heads were friends with my parents, Naruto said. They, nor their children, did not see me as a demon, unlike the rest of Konoha. Despite the efforts of Sarutobi and the Konoha Council to stunt my growth as a warrior, they looked out for me in their own way. The first clan head is Hiyashi Hyuga. You already know of the Bikagen and its advantages and weaknesses, as well as the caged bird seal. The other 3 clan are known for their teamwork, Hinata continued, the Yamanaka, the Akamaiki and the Nara clans, better known by their team name, the Ino Shika Cho Trio. Ever since Konoha's founding, there always has been a team with that title, as they are famous for their teamwork. First up is Ibiki's partner, Inoichi Yamanaka. Intelligence specialist with a unique talent which is their clan's signature ability. Which is? Kota Chiba asked. The Yamanaka has the ability to read the opponent's minds and search their memories, Hinata said. Their signature technique is the mind-body switch technique, in which the Yamanaka can send their mind into a target's body, overriding the target's mind for a short period of time. He has a daughter, Ino, who was a former teammate of ours. The mind-body switch is just one of the many techniques the Yamanaka has at their disposal. His wife, Kozu Yamanaka, used to own the flower shop in town. Second is the Nara, Naruto said. The Nara are known for their high intellect and battle tactics. They are also known for attracting hot-headed women, low energy, and saying, troublesome. The Nara's specialty is shadow manipulation. The Nara's signature technique is the shadow imitation technique, in which they can extend their shadow and merge with their target's own shadow, forcing the other to imitate the Nara's movements. Shikaku Nara is the clan head. Back in Konoha, he was the Junin commander, given his mastery of battle tactics. He also herds deer in his spare time, and is a natural herbalist. Shikamaru Nara is his son. Last, is the Akamaiki, Hinata finished. The Akamaiki are the powerhouse of the trio, possessing great physical strength and can convert their calories into chakra. The downside to this is that their techniques drain their chakra while in use, and maintaining them during battle can be tiring. For this reason, the Akamaiki have very high chakra levels, and for this reason, has to eat a lot in order to maintain those levels. Shuza Akamaiki is the 15th head of the clan, while Choji Akamaiki is his son. Like I said earlier, Naruto said, these 4 clan heads had done their best to aid me despite Sarutobi's orders not to do so. They offered me shelter, food and in some cases, a place to sleep. Their children did not see me as Kurama in human flesh. It is because of this, that Hinata and I are going to grant them political asylum into the empire. They should be arriving by the end of the week by ship. Forgive me for being the voice of opposition chief, Kokura Yamada cut in, but you grant the clans asylum, and then what? Automatic clan status right off the bat. Naruto shook his head. Of course not, Kokura. Just as Hinata and I had to work hard to get where we are at, they will not be given a free pass. They will be on probation for 6 months. When they prove their worth to the unified West, when they show their loyalty to the empire and her people, only then will we accept them as one of the great imperial clans of the imperial nation. Is that reasonable enough for all of you? The council nodded. Their emperor's conditions were acceptable. It was then Eiji raised one hand. Chief, if I was the Hokage, there would be no way that I would let 4 clans of such power leave the village. Are you not worried that Konoha might try something funny? I've already taken precautions in case the cripple or the hag decide to send out assassination squads on the refugees, Naruto replied. You are aware that the Pakara merchant house has branches in the east, particular in Wave, Spring and Water, right? Yes. The refugees had met up with one of the caravans who were on the way to the coast where the bridge once stood. And you know as well as I do that most of the merchants are some of the best shinobi and samurai veterans who had the honor of fighting by our side. Eiji nodded in understanding. Since you are an unknown to Konoha and Fire Country, attacking the refugees while being escorted to the coast by our caravans not only would cause Konoha to lose face with the villages who are known to us, but it also gives us a valid reason to go to Konoha and put blade and jutsu to. He cackled. Chief, you were always such a sneaky little shit. Glad to see you still have the touch. Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment, Naruto replied, used to the older samurai's foul-mouthed tendencies. This, coming from the same guy that came up with a thoughtful, albeit crude description about his wife's demeanor, the only thing bigger than her tits is her heart. Of course, he said that within earshot of Kasumi and the other female members of the council, which earned him a one-way trip to the hospital. He would be in a body cast for the rest of the month. Is there anything else? Hinata asked. The council shook their heads in the negative. Naruto nodded. This meeting is adjourned. 1 week later. The two Pakara cargo ships, each bearing the flag of the unified Western Empire, the black 4 symbols seal on a red background, sailed past Kurata port and headed inland. Only this time, the ships did not carry goods from the east. These cargo ships carried refugees. It had been a week since what would be known throughout the elemental countries as the Konoha Exodus, in which 4 major clans and more than 100 shinobi had turned in their Hitai Atesh and walked out of Konoha. Tsunade and the Fire Lord could not charge them with desertion, as they had willingly resigned from the shinobi forces. Standing on the deck of the first ship, was Hiashi Hyuga. It had been 6 years since he had last seen Hinata, having sent her away with Naruto in order to spare her being branded with the caged bird seal. Despite his outward appearance of putting down his eldest daughter, Hiashi did care for her, and sending her away was the hardest thing he had ever did. But Hinata was smitten with Minato's kid and sending her with him was the best idea at the time. In that time, Hiyashi's personal view in regards to Tsunade and Jiraiya had taken a severe nosedive. The two Sannin had been close to Minato and Kushina. Tsunade was Mito's granddaughter and Kushina was her niece, thus making her Naruto her great-nephew, while Minato was a former pupil of Jiraiya. Both blamed Naruto for the deaths of Minato and Kushina, when it was clearly the fault of the Uchiha, given the reports he had read on that fateful night. Both had went along with Sarutobi's scheme to make Naruto into Konoha's weapon, and when that failed, opted to banish him from the village when it became clear that despite Hiruzen's machinations in stunting Naruto's growth had failed, even going as far as to place him in the bingo book with a kill on sight order. It was clear that the two Sannin had no love for the Uchiha, but they chose a virtual traitor over a hero. In the 5 years since Hinata's disappearance alongside Naruto, Hiashi had not heard a single word in regards to his eldest child. Then, word began to leak out about events happening in the West. A place so war-torn that not even the Sannin nor the Akatsuki would be in their right mind to venture there, was finally united under the rule of a warlord and his medic ninja wife, having been named Emperor and Empress Consort. When the Pakara merchant houses began to emerge in several key locations, caravans began to appear in Konoha, selling their wares. One such branch was in over the border in Wind Country. That was how Hiashi had found out through one of the merchants, who worked with the Empire's information network, that his daughter was still alive, having fled west and fighting in what was to be known as the Unification Wars alongside Naruto. When the merchant told Hiashi that Naruto was now his son-in-law, he was not surprised in the least bit. What surprised him was that the Empire had been keeping tabs on Konoha and several other villages in the east. The empire also knew about the tensions threatening to boil over in Konohagakure, which is why the emperor and empress consort had reached out to Hiyashi. Should things in Konoha get worse to the point that the Hyuga and the Ino Shikacho could not stay, then the emperor and empress consort will allow them to migrate to the Western Empire. But there were two obstacles that were in the Hyuga clan head's way. The Council of Hyuga Elders, who had supported the council, and the Godime herself. The same council who had forced his twin brother to either take his place in the Kumo incident or else his son would be killed. The same council who had voted to brand Hinata with the caged bird seal and personally take over Hanabi's training, to make her an emotionless doll. The council and their supporters would be in the way should he decide to take the clan and leave Konoha, to return to the west, the land of his ancestors. Hiyashi knew this, as did his twin brother, Hazashi. The Hyuga elders knew this as well, as the Hyuga's origins were in the northern region, but the clan relocated to the east once west became unstable, and settled in Konohagakure no Sato as it was founded. Which is why the Hyuga elders had been removed from the equation, along with their supporters in the main branch. Hiyashi's late wife not only loved flowers, but was also a skilled kunoichi who specialized in poisons. So poisoning the tea of their elders and their supporters was no hard task for him. With those in the main branch backing him and the full support of the cadet branch, Hiyashi had wiped out the elders and their allies. When Tsunade demanded an explanation as to what had happened, all he replied was that it was clan business, that he and his supporters had averted a civil war by eliminating the traitors to his clan. The final straw came with Higadime and the Konoha Council had attempted to force his youngest daughter, as well as Inoichi's daughter, the Snake Lady, and his nephew's romantic interest into the Clan Restoration Act. The reason being, as it turned out, Sasuke Uchiha had taken a recently graduated genin under his wing, teaching him the ropes. The boy was an orphan, and was looking to make a name for himself as a shinobi. What better way to make a name for yourself when you have Sasuke Uchiha training you? Then, 3 weeks ago, when the kid made Chunin, Sasuke showed his appreciation by shoving a Chidori into the kid's chest, killing him instantly, but more importantly, gaining the eyes of the betrayer, the Magankyu Sharingan. Only problem was that his daughter, Hanabi, Cell 9, Enko Mitarashi, and the younger Ino Shikacho trio had witnessed the murder. Of course Sasuke was under the protection of Danzo and the Konoha Council, so the murder was swept under the rug, and written off as justifiable homicide. Only the elder Ino Shikacho and Hiyashi had backed their children in Cell 9, while Sasuke had the backing of both the Godime and the Council. Then, it all came to a head a week ago. Flashback. Konoha Council Chambers. The tension was thick inside the council chambers. On one side was the civilian members of the council, the merchants and the wealthy elite of Konohagakure no Sato. On the other side, was the shinobi clan heads of the council, Inoichi Yamanaka, Hiyashi Hyuga, Shikaku Nara, Shuza Akamaiki, Sum Inazuka, Asuma Sarutobi, Shibi Aburame and Kakashi Hataki. Their children sat alongside their parents. Enko Mitarashi was even present at the council's request. Seated at the head of the chambers, flanked by her advisors, Kaharu Udatane and Hanmura Mitokado, was Tsunade Senju, the Godime Hokage of Konoha. Standing in front and to the side of the Godime, was the Warhawk and commander of the Root Anbu, Danzo Shimura. Standing next to him, looking smug over the fact that he had gotten away with murder, was Sasuke Uchiha, now Danzu's protege and the number 2 guy in the Root Anbu. What is this meeting about? Inoichi demanded. Kaharu cleared her throat. It is clear to us that there is quite a bit of tension in Konoha after that dreadful business with that Chunin that the Uchiha had studied under. Dreadful, Tenten parroted. He shoved a Chidori into the guy's chest in front of my cell, Enko, Hanabi and the Ino Shikacho. We see it as justifiable homicide, Hanmura frowned. Shikaku Nara grunted. Justified only because you sacrificed a Chunin just so that the Uchiha runt could get the Magankyu. You should watch your mouth, Nara, Sasuke threatened. I am the prince of this village. No, you are a blight, the lazy Nara had retorted. You are too troublesome for your own good, even as Danzu's lapdog. Sasuke glared at the Nara clan head, Junin commander, Sharingan ablaze. I'm nobody's lapdog, Nara. I am an elite among elite. You should remember that well. Because I have no problem in showing you what the Magankyu Sharingan can do. Sasuke then jerked slightly. He then found himself pulling out a kunai from his pouch and holding it against his own throat. Looking down, he saw that his shadow was connected to Shikamaru's own, the slacker of a Junin having used his Kujumain to ensnare the Uchiha. Threaten my father again, Uchiha, and Itachi will be the true, last Uchiha, Shikamaru threatened. Before things could get out of control, Tsunade had called for order. That's enough. Shikamaru, Sasuke, the both of you stand down. Sasuke did not plan on doing just that, but a look from Danzo said otherwise. He deactivated the Sharingan, while Shikamaru released the Kujumain. This fighting is pointless, Tsunade said, once both sides calmed down. We need to show the other villages that despite our trials and tribulations, that Konoha is still strong, that the will of fire still burns bright in all of us. Hiashi and the Ino Shikacho did not like where this is going. Which is why we have decided to reactivate the Clan Restoration Act in order to rebuild the Uchiha clan, Hanmura said. Sakura Haruno has already been chosen by Sasuke to be his wife. And he has chosen Anko Mitarashi, Tenten, Ino Yamanaka and Hanabi Hyuga to be his secondary wives. The fathers looked like they've been gut-punched. Sasuke remained smug. You should be honored to have your daughters bear the great responsibility of restoring the Uchiha clan back to greatness. Koharu continued, that Sasuke has chosen them to help rebuild his clan. Hiashi quickly recovered. Honored. Even without my eyes, I can see where this is going. You activated the CRA in order to keep myself and Inoichi in line through our daughters after they had witnessed the Uchiha murder an innocent shinobi. Justifiable homicide, Danzo corrected. It was self-defense. Justified in the fact that Sasuke now has the Magankyu, Inoichi shot back. I refuse to accept this so-called decision of this council. My daughter is not a prize, nor is she breeding stock. Haruno wants to pimp out her daughter, fine, but I will not let Ino marry Sasuke. The same with mine, Hiashi seconded. I would rather marry Orochimaru than spend one day as that bastard's wife, Anko snapped. Silence. Tsunade barked. The council has decided, and I have agreed. Your daughters and Tenten will be married off to Sasuke Uchiha by the end of the month. If you fail to comply, then I will strip you of clan status, and your children will become wards of the village. Either way, the CRA still stands, and the girls will be married off to Sasuke Uchiha. Do not test me on this matter. Lord Yamanaka, Lord Hyuga, please be reasonable, Hanmura said smoothly, trying to act as the voice of reason. Both of your clans have been here in Konoha ever since this village was founded by Tsunade's grandfather, which means that your clans are only clans because of your skills. Konoha has been good to your clans ever since you joined the village, and it would be a shame if that relationship ended so abruptly. Instead of thinking about your own personal, selfish desires, maybe you should do what's right. Inoichi had caught the underlying meaning, as did Hiashi. Both men looked at their daughters, as if they were playing with their lives. Then Hiashi slowly rose to his feet, and within seconds, stood before the Godime, her advisors, Danzo and Sasuke. Advisor Mitokado, you are absolutely right, he said. The advisors smiled, as did Sasuke. That is, until Hiashi reached inside his robes and pulled out his Hitai-8. I believe the time to do what is right is now, Hiashi said, dropping his Hitai-8, where it made a loud clink upon impacting the ground before walking out of the council chambers. Meanwhile, both generations of the Ino Shikacho looked at one another, and nodded in understanding. It was time to go. At the same time, Hanabi pulled off her own Hitai-8 and dropped it alongside her father's own. Clink. Clink. Neji Hyuga's forehead protector landed on top of the Hitai Atesh left by his uncle and cousin. Clink. Clink. Tenten and Rock Lee's Hitai Atesh landed on top of their teammates. Wait. Kaharu shouted. You can't do this. Clink. Inoichi's Hitai 8 landed on the growing pile. Clink. Shuza. Clink. Choji. The sound of metal striking the floor was making Tsunade even more angry. You are shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato. Remember that. Kaharu shouted. Clink. Both Ino and Anko gave Sasuke the finger as they walked out, dropping their Hitai Atesh as they walked out. This is sedition. Treason. Danzo shouted. Clink. Shikaku and Shikamaru's Hitai Atesh lands on the pile at the same time. No. Consider this our resignation, Shikaku drawled as he and Shikamaru walked out of the chambers. With that act of defiance, what would be known as the Konoha Exodus has begun. End flashback. Ario for your thoughts. The voice of Shikaku Nara brought Hiashi back to reality. Turning around, Hiashi faced the now former Junin commander and his two teammates. You've been on edge ever since we've arrived, Shikaku said. Anything we should know that we don't already? Hiashi looked at the three men. It was time to come clean. The West was the ancestral home of my clan, he began. The Hyuga originally came from Kimin, now the imperial capital. When the wars intensified, my clan moved across the sea to the east and settled in Konoha. So in effect, you are coming back home, Shuza said. Hiashi nodded. There's more. Once the wars here were done with, and the Pakara merchants began to arrive, I was visited by a member of the merchant house, who gave me a message. Both Naruto and my daughter had fled to the west when Uzumaki was banished and had fought in the Unification Wars. So the kid's still alive, Shikaku said, nodding. Given who his parents were, it's really not surprising. Through the merchant, Hinata and Naruto had both promised myself and whoever came with the clan political asylum in the west should things get out of hand back in Konoha. Sounds like those two are pretty well connected with the emperor to pull that off, Inoichi said. Hiashi nodded. It seems that way. Attention. We will be docking at the imperial capital in 30 minutes, the first mate shouted as he moved along the deck. Upon docking, you will be asked to produce identification, so have your ID cards out and ready. Anyone who does not comply will be taken to jail for the night, and you will be sent back east the following morning. Let's not get arrested tonight, people, it looks very bad on my record. Hiashi sighed, the anticipation evident on his face. Can't believe it's been so long since I've seen Hinata. Come on, Hyuga, Inoichi said. We have to prepare. Kimin Harbor. The boat containing the 4 clans and a sizable number of Junin docked at Kimin Harbor. Once the boat was secured, the refugees began to disembark. At the end of the docks was the gates which led to the imperial capital. 2 guards, 1 shinobi, the other a samurai, were posted at the gates on guard duty. The samurai was older than his shinobi counterpart, and were studying the Konoha refugees as they approached. Caravan, citizen, pilgrim, tourist, or. Hiashi stepped forward, brandishing the scroll. We are refugees from the east. My daughter sent this scroll through the Pakara merchant house. The 2 guards scanned the scroll for a brief moment before the shinobi disappeared via shunshin. Moments later, the shinobi reappeared, with Yugito and in tow, the former appearing via flame shunshin, while the latter used a lightning shunshin. We'll take it from here, Yugito ordered. As you command, General Ni, the shinobi guard said, returning to his post. Hiashi's eyes narrowed. You're Yugito Ni, from Kumo, he said, addressing Yugito. Isn't he the smart one, kitten? Matabi noted in a sarcastic tone. Yugito told her tenant to quiet down. Hiashi turned to A. And what is the rakeage of Kumo doing in the employ of the emperor? Former rakeage, corrected. He pointed to the Hitai 8 which was wrapped around one bicep. I'm with the unified West now. He pointed to Yugito. She's been here longer than I have. Even fought in the Unification Wars, hence her rank. The emperor and his wife, well, they weren't that just yet. Rescued me from the Akatsuki years ago, Yugito explained. I fought alongside them, and now, I led my own unit. I thought that Hinata and Naruto would come and greet us here, Hiashi said. Change in plans, Yugito said. I am to escort the clan heads and their successors to the Imperial Palace for a sit-down with the chief and the lady. Everyone else will follow and head for North Kimin. Everything has been prepared for your arrival, so there is nothing to worry about. What about Naruto and Hinata? Hiashi asked. They are waiting for you inside the complex. Follow me, please. Streets of Kimin City. So what's your story? Ino asked as Yugito led the clan heads and their heirs through the streets of the imperial capital. I fought alongside the emperor and his wife in the unification wars after they rescued me from the Akatsuki, Yugito explained. That was 5 years ago. Hard to believe that the emperor was just a snot-nosed brat back then. So the rumors are true. He's about our age then, right? Shikamaru asked. Yup. Shikamaru noticed that they passed the Suna consulate, which was identified by the Suna Junin standing guard at the gates and the Suna flag, a black background with a white hourglass, hanging out in the front. The Empire's friends with Suna? He asked. Yugito nodded. Yes, Suna is pretty friendly with the unified West. Tamari is Suna's representative here. We also have representatives from Spring Country and from Mist, each with their own consulates and representatives. Growing up, I heard stories about the West, Shuza said. That this place was so dangerous, not even Orochimaru would dare set foot here. Now, I see that things aren't as different here as it was back in Konoha. There's shinobi and even more samurai here than in the East. Yugito chuckled. Those in Iron Country originally came from here. I'm surprised that Konoha doesn't have a trading agreement with the Empire, Inoichi noted. The Emperor and Empress has eyes and ears back east, the blonde Jinchuriki noted. He nor his wife are big fans of Konohagakure. Even he knows that an alliance with a village known for its backstabbing and rewarding potential traitors solely because of their bloodlines is a bad political move. Shikamaru snapped his fingers. The Pakara merchants. Those are part of the Empire's spy network, right? How perspective of you, Nara, Yugito nodded. For a slacker, your intelligence is well earned. But you are partially correct. The Pakara merchant house seen in various locations in the East are in fact a legitimate mercantile guild. But some of its branches also house undercover informants and agents from our intelligence division. For all intents and purposes, Pakara Merchant House is just a humble merchant's guild. Clever, Hanabi said. Minutes later, Yugito and her escort arrived at the Imperial complex. The guards saluted Yugito, who responded with a nod as she led the group inside. Here we are. The Imperial complex. The nerve center of the unified West. Home to the Emperor and the Empress consort. Shuza looked around and let out a low whistle. Nice setup the Emperor has. Not too showy, but not too extravagant, either, he said as Yugito led them to the House of Sovereigns. And it is heavily guarded, Shikaku noted, sensing the chakra signatures around them. The shinobi were well hidden, while the samurai patrolled the grounds. Follow me. The Emperor and Empress consort are both waiting, Yugito said. Imperial Gardens. Minutes later. Watching from the shadows, Naruto and Hinata Namikaze watched as the clan heads and their children took in the sights of the gardens. Hiashi looked pensive, as if they reminded him of something. Hanabi, Ino and Inochi marveled at the exotic flowers and orchids, rare in the East, but common in the West. Shikamaru, Shikaku, Shuza and Choji were looking around, taking in the surroundings. Deciding that they had kept their guests waiting long enough, Naruto and Hinata emerged from behind the group, standing at double arm's length. Naruto cleared his throat. Ahem. Upon turning around, the last thing that the clan heads and their children were expecting to see was the former dead last of the Konoha 11, only now, he was a spitting image of Minato Namikaze with Kushina Uzumaki's hair color, styled in the same manner as how Minato had worn it when he was alive. The whisker marks were gone, his face now shaven. Gone was the orange, as he was dressed in black, vest, pants and boots. The shirt was white, sleeves rolled up. But Hinata had shocked even Hiyashi. She was dressed not in her shinobi uniform, but rather in a stunning black cheongsam with a white lotus imprint, looked incredibly regal in her appearance. Naruto tossed a glance at the sakura trees. The samurai believe that the perfect blossom is a rare thing. They could spend their entire lives looking for that one perfect blossom, and for them, it would not be a wasted life. No way, Ino whispered. Naruto. Here, in the West, they call me Emperor, Naruto replied. Wait, you're the guy who united the lands? Choji asked. The Emperor of the West that everyone back east is talking about. Naruto nodded. He then gestured to Hinata. Hinata also helped, as she fought by my side. She also is the founder of the Imperial Medic Corps. To say that the clan heads, their kids and Cell 9 were shocked were an understatement. The son of the Yellow Flash and the Red Death, once known as the unpredictable knucklehead shinobi, had once again lived up to his reputation of making the impossible possible. Naruto. Rock Lee dashed forward and engulfed Naruto in a bear hug, much to the amusement of his wife and the hidden shinobi guards inside the gardens. You are the Emperor of the West. Truly the flames of youth shine brightly in you. Gak. Lee. Air. Naruto gasped. Bushy brows had gotten pretty strong in the years since he had left Konoha. Oh, sorry, Lee apologized, releasing Naruto. Hinata's reunion with her family was less dramatic. A hug to her father, to which he had whispered, I'm so proud of you, and your mother would be too, followed by a second hug to Hanabi and a nod to Neji, who responded in kind. Shikamaru shook his head and chuckled. Unbelievable. Naruto, you truly live up to your title of being unpredictable. Just like his parents, Shikaku seconded. Glad you see so much of mom and dad in me, Naruto said. Take a walk with us. He and Hinata led the group down the garden's pathway, the clan heads flanking them, Hiyashi and Shuza on Hinata's left and Inochi and Shikaku on Naruto's right. Cell 9, Hanabi and the Inoshika Cho tailed behind. So how was the way in? Hinata asked. Scenic, Hiyashi replied. He looked down at Hinata's hand and noticed the diamond ring on Hinata's finger and the gold wedding band on Naruto's own finger. So, married. Hinata beamed. 2 years. We got married during the final battle at South Ichiyama. Ino, having overhead, asked, you two got married during a war. That's insane. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. It was a spur-of-the-moment type of thing. The alliance that opposed me consisted of 3 warlords in the southern continent. The first one was smart enough to defect to my side. The last 2 decided to attack at my base in South Ichiyama. Lucky me, as the Hellcats and the Demon Brigade arrived earlier to support the troops I had here. He proposed to me in the midst of the fighting, Hinata continued. Yugito conducted the ceremony right after. After the war, and once Naruto and I were recognized as Emperor and Empress Consort, we did the wedding proper. I hate to ask you this, but... Shikamaru began, but was cut off by Naruto. Quote. You want to know about the Jinchuriki who had disappeared, right? When Shikamaru nodded, Naruto confirmed it for him. The Akatsuki does not have them. I intercepted them and granted them political asylum here. All of the Jinchuriki are here. Inochi asked. With the exception of Gaara, who is running Suna, and the Biju, who was sealed inside Yagura, the Jinchuriki are safe, Naruto confirmed. You know firsthand of the bigotry and discrimination that I had faced back in Konoha at the behest of Sarutobi and the 2 Sannin. It was the same in Mist and Iwa. Sure, Yugito and B were not treated as bad, but the animosity was still there. Here, the people see them not as containers, but as people. Han has made his home in the Lajja Mountains, acting as guardian to one of the mountain villages there. Roshi, the last I heard, was somewhere near Tears Point in the southern region. Utakata resides in Shinoko, also in the southern region. Fu lives here in the imperial capital, as she is a member of my intelligence division. B lives at one of the trading outposts, while acts as one of my senior advisors. You already met Yugito, as she is the commander of her own elite unit, the Hellcats. Your actions in Konoha and elsewhere did no go unnoticed, Shikaku noted. I know, Naruto replied. I rescued Utakata from Itachi and Hoshigaki. Hell, Hinata and I rescued Yugito from the zombie brothers when we fled Konoha. Quote. So Orochimaru plans on invading Konoha again? Hiashi asked. Not at the moment. The civil war in Kumo left the village weak. It will take some time before the snake can build up his forces. He and Hinata stopped and faced the clan heads. You four were close friends of my parents. You and the Junin with you stuck up for me when no one else did. I never got the chance to properly thank you all for that. No one should ever go through life the way you did, Inochi said. Not even a Jinchuriki. Naruto nodded. As you know, I promised that day to make up your kindness, and today I will honor my word. Your families will be granted both citizenship and clan status, effective immediately. The Junin that came along with you will also be granted citizenship in the United West and will retain it provided that they serve the unified West as they once served the Leaf. He turned to Hiashi. Lord Hyuga, there is one small matter that must be dealt with. Hiashi could only guess. The caged bird seal. The Emperor nodded. Thanks to Hinata, I found out how to destroy the seal. This is my only condition. If you have any problems with the clan council. The council and their supporters are dead, Lord Emperor, Hanabi interrupted. Naruto and Hinata exchanged glances before turning back to the heiress. Explain, Hinata ordered. There was a civil war between those who supported a marriage between myself and the Uchiha under the CRA, which consisted of about half of the main branch, and my father and myself, along with the more moderate members of the main branch, and all of the cadet branch, Hanabi continued. We lost half our numbers. Tsunade tried to interfere, but father said that it was a clan matter, and outside of her jurisdiction. Bet the old hag did not take that very well, did she? Naruto asked. Knowing her, she would have tried to force Hanabi to marry Sasuke in order to spare father's life, Hinata added. Probably wouldn't have done the same with Ino. Inochi blanched. You sure that was what Tsunade would have done? More than likely, Naruto replied. Your families and the others have been sent to North Kimin. Hinata and I will hold a quick meeting with the others there once you're settled in. Quote. Wait, Lord Emperor, Ino cut in. There's something else. No need for formalities, Ino, Naruto replied smiling broadly. We are still friends. You and the others can address me by my name while in private. Out in public, just call me Chief. It's an old nickname that's stuck with me since my days as a warlord. Ino nodded. Sasuke has the Magankyu Sharingan. Naruto slowly nodded. I know. I saw it when I fought him, Hatake and Yamato. I'm willing to bet that Danzo and those two old freaks that were Sarutobi's teammates had a hand in it, right? Shikamaru nodded. Troublesome indeed, Naruto. Danzo and those two advisors on the council had set up one of the genin to be a student to the Uchiha. The boy, a fresh-faced academy graduate, looked up to the Uchiha in the same way that the Konohamaru Corps once looked up to you. Naruto nodded. It was a shame that Sarutobi had tried to use his own grandson and his two friends as a connection for Naruto to remain loyal to Konoha. When the banishment orders came down, Konohamaru, Moegi and Udon had showed their true colors, denouncing him as a murderer, claiming that he was the one who had killed Bawako Sarutobi, his grandmother and Hiruzen's wife. In the first year of Naruto's reign, the Konohamaru Corps, having recently made Chunin, had been killed, slaughtered at the hands of Akatsuki members Hidan and Kakuzu, Konohamaru being on the receiving end of the Jashin ritual and curse jutsu. Sasuke befriended the boy, Choji continued, and took him under his wing. They became fast friends. When the boy made Chunin, Sasuke betrayed him by shoving a Chidori into his chest. We know because, aside from Hanabi and the three of us, about 7 Junin and Anko saw Sasuke commit murder. Let me guess, Naruto surmised. You four, the Snake Lady and the Junin notified the council, but Danzo and those two bastards swept it under the rug somehow. Sasuke got off scot-free, and with the Magankyu. You even appealed to Tsunade herself, and she did nothing. Am I right so far? The trio and Hanabi nodded. You told your parents, and they believe you, Naruto continued. The Junin who had accompanied you here are not as gaga over the Uchiha, correct? Again, the trio and Hanabi nodded. And when Hiashi and the first-generation Ino Shikacho tried to complain to Tsunade, she told them to basically off. The CRA was the last straw, as it is through marriage does the Uchiha can reign in control over the Yamanaka and the Hyuga clans. Am I right so far? This time, the fathers of the girls nodded. Even after all this time, that idiot of a former teammate is still weak, Naruto surmised. Itachi's mercy was wasted on him. No matter. I have a buffer against the Sharingan, should the need arise. Which is? Shuza prodded. You are aware of the history of the Six-Path Sage, right? Of that the Uchiha and Senju are descended from him. Naruto asked. When the gathered team nodded, Naruto continued. That's a lie. The Six Paths had only one child, a daughter, who is the founder of the Uzumaki clan line. The founders of the Uchiha and Senju lines only trained under him. It was through Madara that he had unleashed the Vixen upon Konoha when he fought Hashirama for control of Tea Leaf. Vixen, Hiashi repeated. You mean, yes, the Nine Tails is female, Naruto confirmed. Don't worry, Kurama's not here, he added, as he caught the clan heads looking around nervously. They breathed a sigh of relief. You'll meet her soon enough. Since you're all here, there's something else you should know regarding the Akatsuki. Something that not even Jiraiya and his information network does not know about. And that is, Inoichi asked. Itachi is not the only Uchiha who is a member, Naruto confirmed. There is another. He is the true leader of the Akatsuki. Looking at the clan heads, he revealed what he know. Kurama confirmed it for me. One thing about the Biju is that they cannot lie. The leader of the Akatsuki is a former teammate of my idiot sensei, and the one most directly responsible as to how my life in Konoha had turned out. His name is Obito Uchiha. It was obvious that the clan heads recognized the name. Obito, Shuza parroted. He was on your father's team with Hatake. It was said that he had died in the last Shinobi War. Apparently, the reports of his death were false. He goes by the name Tobi. And it was Obito who had unleashed Kurama onto Konoha and cased me to lose my parents, Naruto finished. So now, this is personal. Obito will die and the Akatsuki will fall. And what about Sasuke? Hiashi asked. He shoved a Chidori into my chest, Naruto deadpanned. There is no hope or redemption for him. If he decides to become a threat, then I will have no problem in eliminating him as well. First things first, though. Neji Hyuga, come forward and remove your headband. Curious, Neji maneuvered his way around the others and stood before Naruto, the headband removed to reveal the caged bird seal.